What's up, everyone? Welcome to the April 20th edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. The FanDuel slate locks at 6:07 Eastern, so keep that in mind. They moved their lock time up as a couple of start times changed today. The Orioles and Oakland game is at 6:07 Eastern. The Cubs and Tampa Bay game is at, I believe, 6:35 Eastern. So whereas DraftKings chopped those games off the slate and is only giving us a 5-game slate, FanDuel has a nice 10-gamer for us tonight. But keep in mind that it does start a little bit earlier. We're going to take a look, as usual, at 3 of the top tournament stacks and 3 of the top tournament pitchers using the top stacks tool and the top pitchers tool on the Awesemo.com website. Starting with the top stacks, coming in at number 3, the Boston Red Sox are projected for about 5% aggregate ownership with a 5% chance of being the top scoring stack. They have a difficult matchup tonight against Jose Barrios, who is a solid pitcher, 3.69 xFIP since the start of last season for Barrios, about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings. But there's also plenty of power in the Boston lineup, and they're not getting much ownership. Whenever you get a relatively low-owned lineup that includes, Kike Hernandez, Rafael Devers, Bogarts, Martinez, Verdugo, Story. There's a lot that can go right, even in a relatively difficult matchup like they have tonight. 4.4 implied run total for the Red Sox as things currently stand. Number 2, the New York Yankees, projected for about 6% ownership with a 6% chance of being the top scoring stack. Similarly to the Red Sox, they have a difficult matchup tonight going up against Eduardo Rodriguez. He is left-handed, and we know that there's plenty of right-handed power in the Yankees lineup, but Rodriguez is also very good at getting right-handed hitters out. Since the start of last season, Rodriguez has a very strong 3.52 xFIP. He has struck out about 27% of hitters and allowed 1.1 home runs per 9 innings. But as was the case with Boston, anytime you get a lineup with Aaron Judge and Rizzo and Stanton and Donaldson and LeMahieu and all these guys, it's pretty appealing to get there, really regardless of matchup, as long as they're not getting much ownership, which is the case tonight. And number 1, the top tournament stack on FanDuel, the Los Angeles Angels are going up against the Houston Astros. They will be facing Jake Odorizzi, and they have a 4.4 implied run total. The Angels are always a weird stack because their lineup isn't very deep. You also have the issue today where Shohei Ohtani is pitching, so you can't roster him as a hitter. So that does hurt them a bit as well, but still projected to be low owned at 6%. No Mike Trout in the lineup either is a bit of a problem, but on the flip side, you get some pretty cheap pricing. You still have power in Jared Walsh and Anthony Rendon in particular. Joe Adell, if he's able to hit the baseball, has plenty of power. And Odorizzi is just not a particularly good pitcher at this point in his career. Since the start of last season, 1.32 home runs per 9 allowed by Odorizzi, a 4.97 xFIP, one of the more appealing pitchers to target on tonight's slate, even with a watered down Angels lineup where we don't have Mike Trout and we can't use Shohei Ohtani. So to recap, the top 3 stacks on FanDuel: Boston number 3, the Yankees number 2, and the Angels number 1. Now looking to the top 3 tournament pitchers on FanDuel, coming in at number 3, Marcus Stroman, $7,200 price tag, taking on the Tampa Bay Rays tonight. Stroman is not a great strikeout pitcher, but he does a good job of keeping the ball on the ground, limiting hard contact, and being relatively efficient. Since the start of last season, only a 21.5% strikeout percentage for Stroman, but he's only walked about 6.5% of hitters, 3.59 xFIP. He's projected for 1% ownership with about a 5% chance of being the top scoring pitcher on FanDuel. Number 2, Shohei Ohtani. Can't roster him as a hitter, but is projected to go a bit under-owned as a pitcher tonight. We have him projected for about 2% ownership with a 5% chance of being the top scoring pitcher at $9,100. He is facing a relatively strong Astros lineup, 4.1 implied run total for the Astros, but Ohtani has one of the highest strikeout percentages on the slate. Since the start of last season, he has struck out 29.7% of hitters with a 3.45 xFIP. As long as he's not getting much ownership here, I'm willing to roll the dice in a relatively tough matchup against Houston. And number 1, Eric Fedde, projected for 2% ownership at $8,300. He has a 6% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. He has a great matchup against the Arizona Diamondbacks, one of the most appealing on the slate. The D-backs only have a 3.8 implied run total. Fedde has struck out, as a starter since last year, Fedde has struck out 22.1% of hitters with a 4.01 xFIP. So once again, to recap the top 3 stacks: number 3, Boston Red Sox; number 2, New York Yankees; number 1, the Los Angeles Angels. And the top 3 pitchers for FanDuel tournaments: number 3, Marcus Stroman; number 2, Shohei Ohtani; and number 1, Eric Fedde.